Hello, hello, hey, hey. It's Jennifer Palmer, and welcome to the Welly Walk podcast. So, it's been a while. It's been a little while, over a month, and I want to apologize right off the bat. This isn't the episode maybe you were expecting. I did promise to bring you the third installment of our sleep science triptych. Toot sweet after Christmas, but things have come to pass. I had an event happen that has put me off track, set me on the back foot, put a clog in the works. So I'm here to give you a little update on what's been going on, and a little apology that isn't the sleep science episode that you had hoped for. But, I also want to check in with you. I want to do a check-in because it's January, and it is rough. It is rough. I went into this month with high expectations, thinking that this year was going to be different after everything that I've learned in the last year and all the work I've been putting in to cultivate an abundant mindset and manifest things and all the science that I've learned, which is bolstering and has been helping me. Still, I cannot help but fall prey to the demons of January. And I feel bad. I feel really bad for January because this poor month really, it just has us up against the ropes, doesn't it? And I can't help but be situated in the place that it is. We've just had the Christmas melee, the chaos of Christmas, all the stress and the buildup, and it feels like nothing happens in December. Everything gets put on hold. Especially if you have kids, it's like there's so many events that you have to attend, that you have to buy things for, that you have to schedule around. Your work gets all screwed up, and then all of a sudden the kids are off from school and it's Christmas actual, and you've got to be doing all this cooking and cleaning and hosting, and there's all this pressure to make things so sparkly and happy and peace on earth and save the world. And then it all crashes down at New Year's, and you're supposed to take down all the nice little twinkly lights and head into January, dark January. And January has all the New Year's resolutions piled up on top of you, where you're hyper-analyzing your soul and your past and all the things that you've been doing wrong, and you're focusing on these things and thinking, no, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to make everything better. And then you just get into this shame cycle, like an ostrich. Put your head below the sand. You give up on your resolutions pretty quickly because the pressure of it all makes you depressed, makes you feel like you're even more of a failure. Does this sound familiar? This is my experience of January, at least in the past. And this year I was like, nope, it's going to be different. I'm not going to put pressure on myself. 2 Christmases ago, which we're going to talk about in the podcast coming up, I had made a promise to myself that I would not do anything at Christmas that did not bring me joy. I would not feel pressured to write Christmas cards, to bake endless trays of Christmas cookies, to decorate the house within an inch of his life if it was stressful for me. And so I didn't do that much. I did just enough. And the kids didn't know because they haven't experienced that kind of Christmas anyway, because I had surgery the year before, so I was healing and I didn't put that much energy in, and their memories are a little short. So I was off the hook, and it felt really good, and I actually enjoyed Christmas, whereas I have to say normally Christmas feels really stressful once you have children. And so this year I was putting that into play again with Christmas. I was only going to do the stuff that brought me joy. And then I was actually looking forward to January. I was looking forward to January because so many of the things that I did this last year were working, and I was feeling more enthusiastic. I was feeling more motivated. I was feeling focused. I was feeling less emotionally reactive. All of these things were working, and I have felt the happiest I've ever been in my life this last year. And so I just thought, this January, I'm going to recommit and I'm going to lay down some new intentions, some resolutions, and I know that I can make them happen. But as it goes, the little demons, the gremlins in the back of your mind are so powerful. And with the darkness of January and the weather has been filthy. It has been filthy this last month. That's what my husband calls it. Filthy is when the weather is beyond disgusting, beyond rotten. Filthy is when it's just diabolical, and it has been. It's just been constant rain, and that kind of rain that comes from every direction, including below. And each raindrop seems to explode into 1,000 other raindrops and just mist you and permeate into your soul with this dampness. And so that's been difficult. And then your brain just can't help but go into these ruminations and these loops. And my brain is really good at doing this. And then on top of that, I knew that at the end of the month, I was going to have surgery. And I haven't told you about this. But before Christmas, they called me. And I've basically been on the wait list for this next surgery, which is actually part of my original surgery, my mastectomy and reconstruction that I had nearly 2 years ago, actually on leap year. So the anniversary only comes around every 4 years, but it's been 2 years that I've been on the wait list. And the second stage of that, the first was to remove the breast tissue that had the cancer in it, and then to reconstruct the breast from my own tissue. And in my case, they took a piece of muscle from my leg, a long piece of muscle from my inner thigh, and they coiled it up with a little flap of fat. That's what they call it, a flap, from my upper inner thigh, and they assembled a boob-like shape. And they plumbed it into my chest wall underneath the skin. It's amazing. I don't know how they do it. It is miraculous, these plastic surgeons, what they can do. So that was great. But basically, the next step was always going to be at least 6 months, give 6 months to recover, and then go back in, and they would take more fat via liposuction, glamorous, from 3 more places to plump up the boob. So the last 2 years, the boob has looked a little bit, maybe this is too much information, but more like a sock that's been rolled up and stuffed under the skin. And the other boob is looking like a boob. And this poor new boob, which I haven't minded because I've got it and it's mine, and it fills a bra, it fills a bikini, it looks fine underneath a shirt in a dress. So I've been very happy with it. But it's not a boob to match the other one. And the surgeons, they want it to match, which is very nice. And that was the deal from the beginning. So this next surgery was going to be liposuction, and then they would plump up my boob. And the third surgery is to reconstruct a nipple using a kind of origami technique where they take the skin and they fold it in on itself and do all kinds of crazy things to make the structure of a nipple. And then they tattoo it. So there you go. Voila. 3 surgeries later, the finished product will emerge. And I've been on the wait list for 2 years for the second part. So, of course, they called me before Christmas and they wanted to know, would I be up for coming in on the 29th of January and having the surgery? And of course, I said yes, because yes, I've been waiting. And then it so happened, so we hit January, and I'm anticipating this. I know I've got to make provisions. They said it's going to be 6 weeks of recovery and 2 weeks where I can't drive, and at least a week where I shouldn't work. I'm going to be recovering from general anesthesia, and I'm going to feel really tired and really sore. They said I'd feel like I was beat up with a baseball bat for about 6 weeks, which I was like, child's play, considering the pain that I went through with the first surgery. This will be fine. But, I was still anxious about going in under the knife again and having general anesthesia. Your body just knows it's about to be attacked. So there was that. And then you hit January, and I knew I wanted to hit it running. I wanted to hit the ground running because December, everything's been put on hold. Everything's been postponed for the Christmas everything. And I hit January and I'm like, yes, I'm going to recommit. I'm going to set some new intentions. I'm going to go back to Dr. Tara Swart, who we're going to talk about soon, even more on the Welly Walk podcast, and everything I learned about manifestation. And I'm going to recommit myself to my journaling. That was another thing that happened over Christmas was journaling went out the window, meditation went out the window. Everything that I was doing for my sanity went out the window. And I was really starting to feel the effects come January because of this pressure to be better, this pressure to save your soul and fix your life. And then you look at everything that you feel is wrong and it just weighs down on you. And what I know now is that that is creating a lack mindset. That is directly feeding into what Dr. Tara Swart points out is lack mindset. When you feel like you're right up against the ropes, when you feel like you are under attack and life is hard and things are uphill struggle, then you go into survival mode. You are only living to survive each day and you cannot make plans for the future. Your stress goes up and you just want to curl up in a corner and watch TV or scroll on your phone. You know how it feels. Instead of being motivated, instead of feeling optimistic. So how do we combat this? We have to remember what helps us to have an abundant mindset. And first of all, it's looking at the positives, remembering the positives, which is hard to do in January because also on top of all this, the credit card bills are coming in. Your bank statements are coming in. You're probably in your overdraft. If you're like me, you've maxed out your credit cards because Christmas makes you feel like you have to provide. You have to provide something. You have to provide more than you have. And earlier in the year, the summer holidays and the kids being home for endless school holidays, you have to provide not only childcare so that you can work, which costs money, but also activities, food, etc., etc. All things that for me, I was spending beyond my means. And now it's all coming in January and hitting me over the head with this fact. So again, hard to feel abundant when your money mindset is very much struggling and you know that your bank account is not abundant. It is the opposite. So these are all things that I've been struggling with this January, and I imagine you are possibly struggling with them too. So we're going to look at how we fix this. But then on top of this, 2 weeks ago, a little over 2 weeks and 3 days ago, I got a phone call from the hospital and they said, actually, sorry, we've got to cancel your surgery at the end of January because oncology needs it. And of course, when they say oncology needs it, that means somebody with breast cancer needs my appointment. So I'm like, okay, yep, fine. Of course, I'll go back on the waiting list. No. But actually, they say, we've got a cancellation on Monday. This Monday? Yes, this Monday. Could you come at 7:00 in the morning for surgery in 3 days? And I knew I had to say yes. I knew I should say yes. But of course, it's scary because now it's really happening. It's really happening and it's happening right away. And you've got to make sure you get everything in place. And Charlie's going to have to work from home. He's going to have to take care of the kids. He's going to have to take care of chauffeuring them, feeding them, cleaning the house, picking up all the invisible house elf work that I usually do. But I'm sure he can do it. So I just say yes. I say yes, I'm going to grab this opportunity, of course. I'm not going to shy away. And I'll talk to Charlie later. And luckily he was fine. And he was of the same mentality. Yes, we do this. We just buckle down. It'll be over and done with in 6 weeks. Great. He arranged with his work to work from home for 2 weeks secretly. I'm a bit happy because maybe now, again, he's going to see how much work I do, how much invisible house elf is involved, and how difficult it is for me to actually maintain a job and do all that stuff at the same time. I'm hoping this is going to reinforce that message. And it did, And so Monday came along, and I went in for surgery. I left the house actually at 7:00. They had called me and they were like, no, don't worry, just fasting, no drinking water. Get here at 9:00 in the morning. You're first on the list because I have a latex allergy. And so, yeah, I got to the hospital at 9:00 in the morning. The plastic surgeons saw me. It was a different team of plastic surgeons, and they marked me up with a marker, and they're like, actually, we might have to take from more than 3 places. I was like, what? You do what you got to do. You are the artists. So they marked me up even more with Sharpie, circling the places where they think they can get some fat from, which I'm like, I can show you some places. And then I sat around longer, and I saw the anesthesiologist, and she gave me kind of a menu of options from anesthesia. And she said one of the things that they're doing these days, which is helpful. So I've had 4 generals in the last 2 years. And the first 2 were absolutely horrendous. And I was vomiting and nauseous afterwards and just felt really shite for a good couple weeks. But the last one that I had was amazing. I woke up and I was feeling so awake, like I had had more coffee and I had an amazing night's sleep. That's how I felt. I was like, that was fantastic, whatever you did. And she said, I think it's because we gave you the steroid, which makes you feel really peppy when you wake up and helps to prevent nausea. And I was like, oh, that sounds good. She said, the only problem with that is that you might not sleep that night. You might have trouble sleeping because it's going to pep you up so much. And immediately, you guys know me. You know me in the sleep science. I'm going to prioritize my sleep. Thank you very much. Nope. Actually, no, I don't want the steroid because I want to sleep. And she's like, I understand. Sleep is very important. Yes. And this woman was so nice. This anesthesiologist, hats off to her. We talked about midlife crises and podcasts. And yeah, she was very nice. So then I went in and they got me on the table and she started talking to me about dogs, which seems to be a theme. The last anesthesiologist was talking to me about Bluey, who's a dog. I think dogs are just, they know this is a nice, happy, neutral topic that they can throw in, but I know what they're doing. They're always trying to distract you. They're trying to relax you. And she's like, just breathe some oxygen. I'm like, I think there's more than just oxygen in that stuff. And they're squirting things into my vein. And they're like, this is just saline to clean things out. I'm like, I think there's more than just saline in that thing. And then all of a sudden, I'm out. I'm asleep. And the next thing I know, they're waking me up. And this is one of the worst things about surgery is the way they wake you up. They wake you up like the house is on fire. So I heard, I'm deep in this kind of sleep, which isn't sleep. I know it's sedation. We've talked about this. We're sedated, not sleeping. But all of a sudden I hear this voice in the distance, way far away. Jenny, 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 with exclamation marks all around it. It feels like someone's shaking you, trying to wake you up. They're not actually shaking you, but the way they're talking to you sounds like they're shaking you. Jenny, Jenny, Jenny. And it's getting louder and louder and louder. And then I'm awake. And like, why did you have to wake me up? It was so nice. And it was done. It was all done. And it was at that moment that I realized I couldn't move because I was in a lot of pain. They had said it would feel like I was beat up by a baseball bat. Well, yes, it did. And I couldn't move my legs. What I found out later was they had ended up going into 6 places to forage for fat for my boob. And so my legs were so sore. It's really traumatic. I never really appreciated what liposuction does to you. I mean, they make a hole, like a laparoscopic surgery, and they go into this hole and they travel away from the hole up to where they're going to take from, and then they take from that place. So they're causing trauma along a distance. And they did that on the outsides of both sides of my legs, on the inside of my right leg. They did it. They took from my haunches. Yes, I know. So sexy. They took from my haunches on both sides. They went in my low abdominals and went all the way around to the sides of my waist. And then they took from another place, and I can't quite tell where they went with it, but they went in there. And then they took all of that and they went into the boob and plumped it up. So then my boob looked big, really big. And they said they were going to put in more than they needed because the body, this is so interesting, the body will reabsorb a good amount of it. So they had to put in more than they thought. And what might happen is that body absorbs too much and then we have to do it all again. So fingers crossed that doesn't happen. And then also there was a part of my boob, my new boob, Boobatron 5000, as I like to call it, Boob 2.0, Boobalicious, boobarella, it's got many names. We're just test running a bunch of them. Anyway, they were with the first surgery, my stitches opened up. So there was a weird bit where the skin was a bit puckered, and the plastic surgeons were not happy about this at all. So they also did a little bit of editing on that. So I had stitches for that. So anyway, I had a lot of stitches. I had all these stitches, and I was bruised from my knees to my armpits. Whew. And I quickly discovered I couldn't move. I could not turn onto my side. And I had to do that because all of a sudden I started shaking violently. And I realized pretty quickly that I was going into shock. My body it was like that kind of, teeth rattling shudder, but through the entire body. It was like, and I couldn't control it. It was very distressing. And the nurse, I had this lovely male nurse, and he said, don't worry. This is absolutely normal that this can happen. And I realized in this moment, I should have taken that steroid. This wouldn't have happened if I had taken that steroid, I think. And this seemed to go on for about 30 minutes. And I was trying every breathing exercise that I had ever learned, but nothing would work. And the nurse was saying, "Oh, are you doing box breathing?" Yes. Well spotted. I'm doing some box breathing. Have you tried the 16 count breath? Yes, I tried that one already. I've tried that one. I've tried the 5 count breathing. I've tried everything, the long exhale. Nothing's working. He was like, don't worry. And then he started telling me about his partner is a yogi, and he started talking about asanas and the politics behind yoga. I mean, you guys don't want to know the politics. Oof. No, it's very similar to the politics in Pilates. So I was like, I recognize all this. But anyway, he tried to distract me, and I was just thinking, can you just give me a tranquilizer or something? But it eventually dissipated, and they wheeled me into the recovery bay, and they tried to give me some food. Immediately, I felt like vomiting, so they gave me some anti-nausea, and then they kicked me out. Because they needed a bed. It's the NHS, and they're short on beds. And so I was sitting in a waiting area, and finally my husband arrived, and they opened the door to make sure it's him, and they pushed me out and closed the door. They wouldn't even let him in. They were just like, we got to get on with stuff. Bye-bye. One out, one in. But honestly, guys, the NHS was fantastic. And I had a fantastic time, all told. Wonderful time with this day surgery. And I was home by 7:30 at night. We drove via our friend's house who had picked up the kids from school and had fed them and watered them, and deeply grateful and always eternally grateful. Sally and Ollie, thank you very much. And another friend had left me flowers, and I got all weepy. That's another thing that happens when you have general anesthesia. You might get weepy, which I did. And then I was home, and I was asleep by 8 o'clock, and then discovered that it's really hard to sleep when you can't move and you're in a lot of pain. And that's been basically, I had a week of that, of feeling like all I can do is lie down, and I have to call on Charlie to help me to sit up because I can't use my abdominals. Woe betide if I have to cough, or I have to sneeze, or someone makes me laugh. I will kill you if you make me laugh. That was so painful. You realize how much you use and are affected by your abdominals. If they are not working, it is really difficult. So that was a week. And then after that, I started to feel better. I started to take fewer painkillers. And that was, So 2 weeks ago today, I had the surgery. So that's what's been going on. And why I haven't been able to get to the podcast. I kept on thinking, I can do it. I can just go podcast. Here I am just lying on my ass, like not doing anything. But you forget that when the body needs to heal itself, it needs all its energy. And my voice my voice got all like gruff and like this. And I realized, this happens whenever I'm stressed and whenever I'm tired. And it's a signal that I need to respect the fact that my body needs to heal, right? And that's really hard to do. It was really hard to sit and accept my plans need to go on hold. And I need to be okay with that. And what were my plans? My plans were to fix my freaking life. And this reminds me of 2 years ago when I felt so much pressure on myself to sort things out and to understand what my purpose is and to reassess and realign myself and reconfigure my whole life and fix it right away. But we need patience. We need patience and space, and we need to give ourselves kindness. And that's something I've been really bad at doing. And I think in January, we just need to remember this. Are we being kind to ourselves? Because the lack mindset is fed by fear and shame. The more you catch yourself out, being critical of yourself, noticing all of your faults, ruminating on things that you've done in the past, or the way you are now and the way people are reacting to you, or worrying about the future, these are all things that feed into a lack mindset. And the antidote to it is noticing the positives, noticing the small wins, and being grateful. And it's amazing how refreshing it is. It's amazing how alien that feels when you start to do it. It might seem cheesy at first, but as soon as you start doing it, you realize how valid it is and how your perspective is warped by fear. And it's all about perspective. And that's something that brings me to my new kind of maxim for this year, the edict that I've put in place for myself this year. Just something to continuously remember and recall that brings me some perspective. I was listening to, I think it was the Mel Robbins podcast, and she was interviewing someone who was a money expert. And just so you know, my big intention for this year is to master my money mindset, whatever that is, we're going to find out, and to get my head around how to run a business and how to be successful at it. And these are things that, as someone who identifies as being creative and a people person, they do not come naturally to me, and I feel very ashamed of these two aspects of my life. And yes, I should frame it differently. That's the whole point of this year, is I'm going to try and frame my attitude around these two things differently this year and see what comes of that. And I think things are going to change, because it does shift things so quickly. As soon as you start noticing that you just have a habitual subconscious attitude to something that's negative, as soon as you start noticing that and calling yourself out, it chips away at it. It brings it to the surface. It's no longer subconscious, and you can do something about it. And just looking at it does something. It's what Dr. K says. You notice a habit. Every time you notice it, it's no longer subconscious. It's conscious. It's no longer a habit. You have control over it. You can chip away at it. And after a while, it doesn't have as much of a hold on you. All it takes is just patience. Patience, patience, patience. So this maxim, my new maxim, so this guy, and I don't remember his name, but I'm gonna find out. We're gonna talk to him. Yes, maybe. We're gonna talk about him at some point. But he said, and this kind of cut to the quick, he said, the difference between your expectations and your reality is your happiness. Meaning, if there's a big difference between your expectations and your reality, you are not going to be very happy. If your reality and your expectations are very close to each other, then you are going to be happier. So the difference between your expectations and your reality equals your happiness. That really resonated with me as like, oh yes. So, and I all of a sudden realized when I was thinking about something and I was worrying about it, or I felt ashamed about something, I realized that it's because I had an expectation that it would be different than it is. And it's because of that expectation that I'm unhappy. But if I reframe it and I see all of the things that I have done well and all of the things that I have done right, and yes, things might not have gone according to some plan that I had when I was 16 years old or 21 years old and didn't really know how life worked or how difficult things were. And if I focus in on the things that I have accomplished and the boons that I have, the wonderful things in my life, my children, the fact that I have a beautiful, kind, hardworking husband who loves me. Why does he love me? How can anyone love me? Catch yourself out on those thoughts as well. But the list goes on. I have a freaking house. I have a house that I live in that we own, and we've got a garden, and there's birds in it, and I've got a car that runs and gets me from place to place, and I can fit stuff in it, and I've got clothes that don't have holes in them. I am so profoundly lucky. And yes, you might think, but that's, just to be expected. But is it? Is it to be expected? It's fantastic. As soon as you start to focus in on all the things you do have and you realign your expectations with your reality, you feel much happier. And I think this is how gratitude works. We're going to talk about gratitude and the science behind it in another podcast because I've been working on that. I became aware of it because Dr. Tara Swart brought it up in her book about manifestation and abundant mindset and how this is key to have a gratitude practice really helps to feed an abundant mindset. And it's absolutely true. For me, that's what I've found. And I think this one saying just keeps bringing me back in check. The difference between your expectations and your reality is your happiness. And I think you can apply this to your bank account as well. So if you expect that, and this is what I do a lot, like the kids are home on summer holidays and I should be able to afford to take them out to Pizza Express for a lunch one day because I should be able to afford that. And if the money's not in my bank account, but I still go and do it, the difference between my expectations and my reality is big. And then I feel unhappy doing it because I know that I'm doing this. And then I feel even more unhappy when I get my bank statement later or my credit card bill and it's not good. Then I feel even more unhappy. So anyway, this year coming up for me, like I said, is about money mindset and perspective and reining in my expectations. And that's been really helping me recently. So I wanted to share that with you. I also want to, I have a little Black Friday confessional. Yes. And this goes along hand in hand with why did I do this? And I knew I shouldn't do it at the time. It's Black Friday. We all do this, don't we? We all have Black Friday regrets, but at the same time, we feel like we deserve it. And because it goes on sale, then we are being virtuous because we're catching it on sale, right? But if you don't have the money in your bank account, it's not very virtuous. It's not a good idea. But we still do it. So anyway, my Black Friday confessional. So you might recall we talked about lymphatic clearance. You're like, where is this going? What has she bought? Well, lymphatic clearance with your brain. We talked about this in the sleep science episode. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back. It's all about how the brain has to clean itself out while we sleep. Otherwise, toxic material builds up in our brain and can cause things like amyloid plaque, which leads to dementia, etc. And so the lymphatic system is so important. And it's the glymphatic system when it's in your brain. I digress. But anyway, Andrew Huberman, who was talking about the lymphatic system in one of his podcasts, mentioned this woman, Anastasia Beauty Fascia, that's her Instagram handle, and how she does lymphatic massage and fascia massage. And she has all these amazing before and after pictures of what it does to people's faces. And it's like natural facelift, Botox, basically, without any surgery. And Andrew Huberman was talking about how this stuff really works. And you can just go and look at her, and she's doing really great work, and blah, blah. And I was like, she must be good for Andrew Huberman to mention her. He doesn't usually throw people's names around like that. So I was curious and I went on Instagram and I looked her up and I mean, first of all, I know some of you follow her because I could see some people that I know who I know might listen to this podcast also follow her. And that's why I was like, okay, let's watch. Let's see what happens. She is just a goddess, first of all. I mean, I think she's still in her 20s. I don't even think she's there. I think she's 29 or something. So we can't compare ourselves, all of you. I mean, I'm turning 47 this year. I'm 46. So I'm not comparing myself to a 29-year-old, but she is gorgeous. And she's got mermaid hair, and it's so thick and luscious. And she's got this beautiful face that's perfectly kind of sculpted and pink, and everything just looks amazing. And immediately I was like, I think Andrew Huberman mentioned her because he thinks she's pretty. But then I started watching her reels, and it was so interesting and sciencey. There's a lot of science that she's talking about. I mean, she has an Eastern European accent, so a lot of the time she makes little mistakes with her English, but she's throwing in a lot of sciencey terms. I'm like, all right, I think she knows what she's talking about. And I just became so intrigued. And so I wanted to see what she offers as far as tutorials. And of course, the reels just kind of lead you deeper, don't they? Because they don't give you quite enough. That's what they're made to do. And so I followed the breadcrumbs, and she reeled me in. And long story short, I signed up for the waitlist for her like a course that she gives. Lo and behold, come Black Friday, there's a big Black Friday deal. It's going to be the biggest and the best deal she's ever given. But you got to do it now. And I hemmed and I hawed, and I was like, no, I can't do it. I can't afford it. I can't do it. But then the voice in the back of my head was like, but it could be research for the Welly Walk podcast. You could talk about it on the podcast, and maybe you could get her on the podcast. So, it could be, it's fine. It's fine. Do it. And also, one of the things, so in my journal, I'll talk more about how I approach journaling, because I think it's really helpful. And I've kind of accumulated a approach to my journaling with the advice of Dr. Tara Swart and some other people as well. I keep adding on to what I add into my journal every day, but it's like an accountability model, and it keeps me accountable. And I like to keep a list of the things that I'm actively prioritizing. I only prioritize 3 big things, or little things. It could be flossing. That's one thing that I achieved this last year. I made that a habit. I've always tried to make flossing a habit and always failed. And this year I did it with this model. But I always try to have 3 things that I'm prioritizing, just 3, so I don't get overwhelmed and I stay focused on them. And then underneath that, I'll jot down a few things that I would like to do. I would like to focus on next. And they're kind of like waiting in the wings. And then if one of the 3 things that I'm trying to prioritize becomes a habit, I can take it off the priority list because now it's a habit, and hopefully it's in my pocket. And I add one of the things from below, one of the other things that I'd like to start to focus my attention on. And face yoga has been on that bucket list for a long time. For like 20 years, I've been curious about face yoga and if it does anything. And now there's face Pilates as well, which, let me tell you, Joe Pilates did not invent anything called face Pilates. So I don't know what it entails, but still curious. And I could, as a Pilates teacher, I could do a course and qualify to teach it. So that was like, do I want to do that? Is it really going to add anything to my business? And remember, this year is all about business. So anyway, because face yoga was on my bucket list, I felt validated in buying this course from Anastasia Beauty Fascia from The Mermaid. And I did. I bought it on Black Friday. And originally it seemed like a 30-day challenge. So you do one of her videos, which is supposed to be only 20 minutes long, but I discovered mostly were 30 minutes long, plus a whole bunch of other little exercises that you're supposed to do. So it comes out to quite a lot, like maybe 45 minutes a day for 30 days. But then you quickly realize that actually it's not a 30-day challenge, it's a 60-day challenge. She wants you to do a before photo at the beginning and then do an after photo after 60 days. And then you're entered into a contest and you could win a prize. And, all these things kind of gamify it and make it just reels me in more. So long story short, it's almost been 60 days. I've been doing this lymphatic facial massage for almost 60 days now. And I'm going to report to you after 60 days. I'll let you know how I feel, and I'll give you my review of it all. Yes, and I might share my before and after photos. I don't know. When I took the photo, there's some other things having to do with perimenopause, I think, that pushed me over the edge to want to do it as well. So we'll talk about that as well. But yeah, the before photo was like, oh God, what's going on with my poor face? Where'd she go? Where's Jenny gone? So I'm hoping that lymphatic massage might help me to pull some of that back. So yeah, so that's my Black Friday confession, which again did not help me when I got my credit card statement this January, and it fed even more into the January blues. There's a reason there's the most depressing day of the year in January, according to scientists, but we're not going to do that, are we? We're not going to do that. So what is my point with this episode of the podcast? Good question. I just wanted to check in and say hi and apologize again for not bringing you that third sleep science installment. And also just to let you know what's been going on and where I've been. And, you know, it's another little installment of my boob saga. So you needed a boob report. But also, I just feel deeply that we all need to get a grip of January and give it a little bit more space and time and be a bit kinder to January and to ourselves. You know, poor January. I feel bad for January. It's just like, you know, it's got it rough. We hate it. Poor January, except for people who have birthdays in January. You Capricorns are also nice. My mom's a Capricorn, and some of my best friends' parents are Capricorns, and they're also nice. So, you know, you guys rock. But, you know, January is hard, and it brings out the worst in our gremlins. And so I just want to remind you that I'm here with you, and we can do it. And let's try to remember all the small wins. It can help to write a list of all the things that you have accomplished in your life. And once you start it, you'll realize there's a lot that you can put on there. And don't miss out things like becoming a partner to somebody. Don't miss out on things like becoming a parent, and catch yourself out whenever you're thinking negatively, or you're shaming yourself, or you're hyper-focusing on something that's a regret. Let's try and put it in perspective. And remember, the difference between your expectations and your reality equals your happiness. So let's close that gap, shall we? And hopefully we're going to feel a lot happier come February. All right, guys, I'm going to leave you with that. I'm wishing you much welly, and let's hope the sun comes out soon. All right. Oh, and if you could, remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share. And I would love to hear from you in the comments. I really, really would. Seriously, I love hearing from people in the comments. It buoys me and makes me feel happy. And I like that there's a little community. Okay, so I'll talk to you soon. May the welly be with you. Bye-bye.